Hello again and welcome. We're now going to cover Chapter 9 in the textbook. Chapter 9 covers business intelligence systems, which is one way of looking at not just the BI, but looking at things like data warehouses and analytics and other things of that sort. So we'll cover quite a bit of ground in this lecture. We'll also bring in a very small example from the healthcare field just to kind of reinforce the point. So if we can, let's look at Chapter 9. Chapter 9, as I said, is on business intelligence systems. All right. So first question, how do organizations use BI? Well, I suppose we should go back even to an early question. What the heck is business intelligence, which seems a bit like an oxymoron? Business intelligence is an information system that processes operational or other data to analyze past performance and make predictions. Now, it's the book definition. What is it? A BI system takes a lot of data, a lot of things that we may have access to. So you can see here in the diagram, which is 9-1. We may have operational data, which would be things that go on the normal, everyday systems that we already have. Our sales information, our inventory information, maybe even using real-time sales, things of that sort. Then we also have purchase data, things that we may have bought from data aggregators or other places. There are companies that will go in and analyze things about our customers and analyze things, demographics, and all sorts of other things that we would possibly use, and we would feed that into the BI system. And we also have some social data that we may use, which would be things that come from our social media sites and other places. So we take all of this stuff and put it in the BI application and analyze it in an effort to try to find more information than would immediately be available to the naked eye. So we take this and we go and find other trends. I'll give you the classic example. What would happen if someone raises the price of beer? Well, if we raise the price of beer, prices are going to fall because people just don't necessarily want to pay higher prices. However, what happens in the same store if we cut the price of, let's say, potato chips? We cut the price of potato chips by a certain amount, and we've been able to look from our BI system and find out that there's a correlation between people that purchase potato chips and beer. So by cutting the price of one, we're increasing the possibility of sales in the other category, and we do this without affecting our original product. So that's the way we do it. BI applications do things like find trends and understand what relationships may exist that, again, may not necessarily be immediately available. And we'll talk about a number of other examples here as we go along. And once you get it, you publish it out to a set of knowledge workers for them to use to make other decisions. So example uses. So we can look at this and see what we do. Problem solving. The example that we would have in the prime example is how can we get our patients to follow their prescriptions better? Or which of our patients are exercising too much? Or in what ways are they using the new system? We can take all of the data and information we get from these to actually go out and produce other information. Again, I'll talk about some other examples here going forward. Like this. What would happen if, at a given point in time, any point in time, your doctor was able to have access to your genetic information from your parents, your prenatal information, things that happened during your labor and delivery when you were born, things that happened to you all throughout your pediatric period, and then every single piece of information from every doctor's visit or medical visit or anything else of the sort that you had for your entire life. Every prescription, everything that you're on now and ever was, when you broke your leg as a 9-year-old, when you had the mumps, when you had any sort of disease, anything that you may have had, all of that information to date is available to the doctor now, so he's able to make a very, very thorough decision. That's one thing that we get from analytics or business intelligence, and that's only from the healthcare field. You know what? Let's do that. So you can see some of the information that might be available. So even on this day, January 26th, maybe we've been tracking our meals. We had our blood sugar monitored, or we had a pedometer which said how much we walked that day. We take all of this information and we're able to make a really accurate prediction or accurate forecast, excellent diagnosis even of your current career, your current condition, I mean. So what can we get from data sources in healthcare? We can see that we have certain internally stored data, which we from clinical systems or financial systems or whatever. We can have different information which may come from other healthcare organizations. If you visited the emergency room at someone else's facility, I can get access to that information. External data sources, credit reports, which, yes, hospitals do care about that kind of thing. Patient control data sources like a wearable machine such as a Fitbit or something that monitors your blood pressure or blood sugar periodically through the day, or remote monitoring systems that may come up. And what would happen if we got data from the lab and people that do images, which would be like x-rays now? All of that information we take and use in order to manage our medicine and our patient population. I'll give you an example. There's a hospital in Virginia, Carilion Clinic, which was able to review, I think it was 850,000 patient records. But they looked at it with an eye toward trying to find people which may have the onset of some sort of a heart disease or coronary issue, but may not even have symptoms yet. They were able to find, if I remember correctly, the number was like 80,000 people for whom a heart attack or some sort of heart disease was not necessarily imminent, but they had done something to increase the likelihood of it. And in fact, tests would go through and find that a certain fair percentage of them actually did have the problem, and would never have known it until the issue manifests itself, which means, frankly, they may have passed away. That's the kind of thing that we can do with healthcare. Just imagine that's just in one industry. There's so many other industries and so many other ways that we can apply that kind of data. Okay. So what are the primary activities in BI? The first thing is acquire the data. Next is perform the analysis on the data, then publish the results. Okay. So how do we get the data? Remember what I just showed you. Here's all the data sources. We would have to connect to each and every one of those to try to make sure that we can get all of the data that normally would be available for us to make a great decision. Right? Then we analyze it. We do things like reporting, data mining, big data. We'll talk about those in a little while. And then we publish the information out to those knowledge workers and people on our staff that may need it. Whether we just push it to them, as in just sending them information they may not have normally been expecting, or if they request something and they get back the answers they want. Right? So how do we use data warehouses and data markets? First off, why not use just operational data? The data that we use on our everyday business. Well, three problems with that. One, security and control. I really don't necessarily want people to have access to my operational data. So we separate some things out. Two, operational data is not structured for BI analysis at that. We'd have to completely rebuild the data system, the database for that. And thirdly, BI analysis degrades operational server performance. Translation in English. With an example, have an ex-student that works for or used to work for a contracting firm that worked with AT&T on their billing services. He would start a query running, which would be a report, and go to lunch and come back. It would be about an hour and a half to 2 hours before it was done. Imagine if I have 10 people that are running applications on this system, and it more or less chokes up 2 hours worth of performance. And they're all doing something relatively simultaneously, and I have normal users trying to do things like check this customer out. Then we have people that will complain. So by separating the business intelligence off to another site or another server, we run the risk, very little risk of not being able to get what we need, and we also have very little risk of destroying the operational performance of the existing server. So it won't slow down for everyone. So the functions of a data warehouse are to obtain and extract the data from different sources, operational data sources, internal and external databases. We cleanse the data, correct it if that's needed, organize and store it in our database, and we make it available for people that may need to use it. And maintain a metadata catalog, which metadata is nothing more than data about the data. So it would say, if this is the phone number field, metadata says, yes, it's a numeric field with 10 characters and blah, 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 blah. So the components of a data warehouse, as you can see, are the data that goes into the system. We extract, cleanse, and prepare it. We make sure that it is consistent with the existing data in our warehouse. So, for instance, we have a name field that is stored as the first name, last name, and not with both names chunked together into one box. So then we have our data warehouse, DBMS, or database management system, and then we use tools or statistical things to actually go in and try to get data out of it. This will surprise you, but here's some things that you can find out online from you if you're willing to pay for it. Name, address, phone, age, gender, ethnicity, religion, income, education. Hopefully you're getting a little nervous now. Home ownership of your vehicles, still a little nervous. Your magazine subscriptions, your catalog order, a little bit suspicious. Your marital status, are you married or not? What rough life stages are you? A college grad, just got out, your high school kid just got out, are you an elderly citizen? That is a bit of a difference. Your height, weight, hair, eye color, spouse's name, birth date, your children's name, and their birthday. All of these are things that I could purchase online. And if you don't believe me, go to a site called SPOKEO, for KO. That's SPOKEO.com. Put that in and put it in your parents' house or your aunt or your uncle, your friend, or someone you know, and see how accurate information is that comes back. I've had students look up and say, wow, this is showing a picture of my house. Yeah, And it's saying how many bedrooms and bathrooms we have. Yep. And it also tells you roughly how much my father makes. Yep, it sure does. There's a lot of things that you can get from that site. Just imagine what happened if you paid and got the real deal. So what are some of the problems we have with the source data? If I go and get data from somewhere that I want to put into my BI application, I've got to be concerned with it being dirty or not being what we need. Right? So whatever the case may be. So in this case, we've got to figure out certain ways to look at the data and clean it. So the data may be dirty. Instead of trying to get data from a site that doesn't necessarily have the cleanest, the least accurate issues, we get bad stuff. So again, if we have everybody with first and last name, 2 fields, and I get another site that puts it all in one, we've got an issue. That would be inconsistent data. What happens if the data is not integrated or something that we can connect with the data we've already put in our database? What happens to the wrong granularity, meaning it's not fine enough? I really need daily figures. Matter of fact, I need hourly. Matter of fact, I need a figure every minute for the sales that we have. And then their reply will be, it's not fine enough. It's not small enough. Okay. Or it's too fine. However you want to deal with it. What happens if we have too much data? That's another issue that we would actually deal with. So in this example, looking at the far right side, we have something called a data mart, which would be the information about the different store sales and how we can go about looking at store management to try to increase sales. It's smaller, much smaller version of a data mart, but it seems to be effective. So I'm going to cut it here. One thing I do want to make sure I point out is this one, slide on big data. Okay, big data has 4 B's. I know in the textbook they had 3, but we'll go with 4, which is the way I've normally seen it. One is the volume. How much data are we talking about? In this case, we're saying a petabyte or larger. For those of you that don't know, a petabyte is 1,000 gigabytes, so it's an awful lot of data. Then there's rapid velocity. The data comes pretty rapidly. It has a great variety, which, again, if you look at the data sources that we use, you can see it is pretty voluminous. And finally, the 4th B is veracity, which has something to do with the Italian energy level. So I say Italian, not really Italian. The energy level that may be associated with a given set of data. How accurate is that? Is it something that we can trust? If I'm looking at medical data, is this data that's going to come out of the machine correctly? Is it going to give someone a blood pressure of 255 over 32, which is clearly not an accurate blood pressure read? What's the veracity of that? So that's mainly what we will talk about for Chapter 9. There's a lot of information that exists out in the world today about big data, and when you're writing your report, some of you will be brave enough to take on this new concept of big data. And if you are, bless you. I want to see what you do with it just as well as I want to see what other people do with theirs. So, in time, we'll get to take a look at that. So, in the meantime, that's Chapter 9, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually go back and look at a couple of other things, but we'll release a normal quiz for Chapter 9, and then we'll go in and look at a few other things like maybe a project management set of really brief slides on that and a few other things. But with that, I'm done with Chapter 9. Have a great day, and we'll talk with you later.